Impossible, 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 said everyone when they heard that Stark's Cafe was closed and that the building was being torn down. Stark's Cafe on Houston Street was a famous place in New York. It was where playwrights, from the most famous to the least known, made deals with managers. A special table at the end of the cafe was for this purpose, and when a manager was sitting there with a playwright, it meant they were doing business. Charlie, the lawyer, would then come and write the papers. Stark's Cafe. Actors in Alexandria, Egypt, made plans with their London friends to meet at Stark's. They didn't need to say, in New York. Stark's was the stage meeting place of the world. The first tables near the door, just plain wooden tables, were for the ushers, ticket sellers, and extra actors. Next to these tables were some better ones with marble tops, where provincial actors visiting the big city would sit. Then there were a few more tables for musicians and writers of vaudeville songs. But the round center tables and those near the windows on Houston Street were for stars, managers, and successful playwrights. Stark's head waiter said it clearly. These tables are for gentlemen who at least sometimes wear a silk hat. And now this place, this meeting spot of the world, was closed and being torn down. Old Samuels, one of the oldest actors, was very sad about it. You understand, he said. For 20 years I never missed a day at Stark's. In the morning, after breakfast, I would shave, dress, and go to Stark's. Maybe, who knows? And after lunch I would go back. To save money on the bus, we moved close to the place. After dinner I was there again, and after the show, maybe. Samuels's nickname was Samuel Maybe, because it's been more than 20 years since he came from London, where he was a success, to play here, and it's still maybe. But he has always been true to his art. Oh no. This was mainly because his wife and daughter were excellent dressmakers. You see for yourself what a disaster the tearing down of Stark's is. Old Samuels continued, as he wiped a tear from his eye. All my hopes are gone. There can be no maybe any longer. I am finished. What will I do every morning, every afternoon, every evening? Where will they come to look for me when they need me? I must tell you that this talk happened in a new cafe on 10th Street. A kind friend suggested to the old actor that he should make this new place his regular spot. But the old man stood up straight, his eyes shone, and his thin hands shot out from his white sleeves in a dramatic move. Here, in this place? I, Samuels, the man who played Keene and Shylock? No, never. Even if I starve to death. In a place without atmosphere, without history. Never. Never. 1 minute later, he looked up at the clock on the wall and started making quick excuses. His wife was waiting for him with supper. Samuels's past had one of the greatest dramas. It ruined his life. It was a disaster for him. Here is what happened to him 20 years ago. There were only 2 theaters with big names in the whole world. One was in London and the other was on the Bowery in New York, the old Thalia Theater. The theater on the Bowery was more famous because of the talented playwright Jacob Gordon, who was in charge there, and the many actors he helped. It was every London actor's dream to perform in New York. One of Samuels's friends had already become famous on the Bowery. Samuels, who believed deep inside that he was better than any other actor, decided to try his luck in New York. In London, he was already famous for some classic roles. 10 days after he decided, he and his suitcase arrived at Stark's Cafe. From London? How is London? What's the new play there? People asked. Samuels wore his best clothes and was allowed to sit at the center tables. This let him meet stars and managers. His friend, who had come before him, sat enviously at one of the smaller tables. He only had a small part in a play, for which he got paid in pasteboards, tickets, which he sold himself to ticket sellers. In those days, actors did not have $10,000 cars. Samuels's early success, being allowed to sit at the center tables, made his old friend, Cashin, very jealous. It happened that Gordon, the dramatic manager, saw Samuels, liked his face, and gave him a role right away in a new play they were rehearsing. That same evening, a message was sent to London to Samuels's wife. "Pack up and come with the baby." It brought Esther here 2 weeks later, just in time for the first night of the new show. Samuels's role was the one next to the star. Cashin had a very small role, as a servant to Samuels, who walked around in flowing robes backstage from one end to the other. Samuels waited behind the curtains for his cue. He had to come in with strong steps and say that he was leaving his unfaithful wife for her lover. Oh, how he was excited, waiting for his cue. It was supposed to amaze the audience. He was supposed to be even better than the star. And the cue was given, Cashin was near him, everything was ready. But just as he opened the door, Cashin gently but firmly stepped on poor Samuels's corn, on the little toe. The pain was so bad that Samuel stumbled and limped on the stage with one foot in his hands. Mechanically, he said his lines. Instead of using a loud and powerful voice to face the audience, he said them in a sad tone, like a whining dog, looking at the stage door with his back to the audience. It was so funny that the audience roared with laughter and couldn't stop. The heroine cried and begged, but it didn't help. The gallery kept laughing. When the curtain went down, Cashin had disappeared from the theater. The actors almost attacked poor Samuels. The playwright, Gordon, was very angry. "Even if they cut your head off, you should still have acted your part properly," he said. As soon as the poor actor appeared again in the next act, the people laughed even more. Couldn't be stopped. When the manager came out before the curtain and explained to the people what had happened, it became even worse. The show couldn't continue. It ruined the show, a good play which was performed again 10 years later with great success, and it ruined Samuels. Esther, a practical wife, opened a dressmaking shop. Samuels spent the next year or so explaining what had happened. In the first few weeks after the event, Samuels moved from the center tables at Stark's to the side tables. Actors in a good mood persuaded him to tell his story over and over again. It became a tradition to ask Samuels, and Samuels was easily persuaded to tell the story. But he couldn't get any place on the stage. From a character player, he became a character. Every manager promised him a part in the next play. Some believed it brought good luck to do so. When a play failed, they said, "Because Samuels did not believe you." So, the stage grew under his eyes with the doors closed to him, because someone had stepped on his toe. He became maybe in the next play. Don't refuse Samuels. The manager would whisper to the playwright when the contract was made at the big table. Don't refuse him. It brings bad luck. Samuels would always watch the proceedings and come up to shake hands and wish good luck. "And will I have a part?" "I hope so, Samuels." "Esther, I have a part in Ash's new play." Esther had heard that same phrase 20 years, 3 times a day. Like all actors, Samuels had a limited vocabulary of his own. Depending on other men to give them the words, Actors are not good at finding words. Then, the night of the first performance, Samuels would sit near someone, and as the role appeared, he would sadly say, "My role. Look what he is doing with my role." 20 years of daily hopes and daily disappointments. A whole world grew up before him. He knew nothing of it at all. Stark's Cafe was New York, America. The whole world was between his home and this place. His hair turned gray, the corners of his mouth drooped, his eyes dimmed, his shoulders stooped. His wife grew old, his daughter grew up and became tired from overwork. There was the Boer War, several earthquakes, the Balkan War, and now this great war. All this left Samuels cold and indifferent. All those years he was waiting at Stark's Cafe for a job. Maybe today. And this place of hope has disappeared.